Fellow creators, the word failure carries so much unnecessary weight. We treat it as proof that something went wrong, when in truth, it's one of reality's clearest communication tools. Failure isn't the end of a creation, it's actually the beginning of understanding. It's how consciousness receives feedback about what it's broadcasting. You see, every manifestation, every project, every relationship is a reflection of state. The vibration we're embodying, not the one we wish we were in. When an outcome doesn't match what we envisioned, it's not a personal flaw or a cosmic punishment. It's actually data. The universe is saying, here's how your current frequency just expressed itself in form. Once you recognize that, failure stops being frightening and starts being fascinating. Each misstep becomes a mirror, reflecting your inner landscape in detail. And the moment you start reading that reflection instead of reacting to it, you enter a new level of creative intelligence. Think of it like navigation. When your GPS recalculates, it doesn't scold you for missing a turn. It calmly updates the route. That's how reality operates, always recalculating in response to consciousness. Every wrong turn is simply redirection towards greater alignment. The most successful innovators, mystics, and artists have this in common. They interpret feedback faster than others. They see life as an interactive system, not a judgmental scoreboard. They don't fear contrast, they mine it for information.
And that's the real turning point, isn't it? The moment you stop interpreting outcomes emotionally and start reading them energetically. Because failure only hurts when we make it personal. But it isn't personal. It's mechanical, cause and reflection. Reality isn't a moral judge, it's a mirror. It doesn't decide what's good or bad, it reveals resonance. When you get an unexpected result, you're simply seeing the precise frequency that produced it. That is feedback, not fate. Picture an engineer fine-tuning a sound system. Each time the output distorts, they don't quit, they adjust the settings. That's what conscious creation is, tuning awareness until it plays in harmony with what's intended. The trouble is, most people confuse feedback with failure and they react emotionally. That emotional reaction blurs the signal. When you remove the emotion, the information becomes crystal clear. You can't observe it without collapsing into judgment. Masters of manifestation have trained that neutrality. They use every result as insight. They know that clarity grows through contrast, that without occasional distortion, you'd never learn to refine the sound of your consciousness. Failure isn't proof of misalignment, it's the invitation to align. When you approach it that way, you stop fearing feedback and you start collaborating with it.
That collaboration is what accelerates creation. When you start working with feedback consciously, you remove resistance. The process that once felt slow or confusing becomes fluid. You're no longer fighting reality, you're decoding it. Every result you receive is a language pattern, a vibrational report card. It tells you what you've been thinking, feeling, assuming. If something didn't manifest as you hoped, it's not that the universe said no, it's that your signal said something else. Reality always matches the most coherent vibration, not the loudest desire. That's why awareness matters more than effort. You can work tirelessly while holding an inner contradiction and still see no results. But one moment of clarity can reorganize everything. I often compare feedback to light refraction. When light passes through water, it bends. It looks like the object beneath the surface has shifted, but it's an optical illusion. a difference in density. The same happens when your intention moves through mixed beliefs. The result bends. Feedback shows you where that bend occurred. If you interpret it correctly, you can adjust your angle of consciousness, your internal lens, and the outer world straightens instantly. That's not metaphorical, it's energetic physics in motion. You don't fix the reflection by arguing with the mirror. You shift what's being projected. And failure, paradoxically, is the fastest way to learn a skill.
Once you understand feedback as a natural part of the creative system, you stop resisting contrast. You begin to recognize that the universe is highly responsive, not random. Every event you encounter, every success, delay, or disruption is precision guidance. That's what makes conscious creation so different from blind optimism. It's not about pretending everything is fine, it's about reading what is. Reality constantly reflects where you stand vibrationally. If the reflection is blurry, you refine your focus. If the flow feels blocked, you examine what state you're broadcasting. Here's where it gets powerful. When you respond intelligently to feedback, you accelerate alignment. The loop between intention and manifestation tightens. You evolve faster because you're adjusting in real time rather than repeating old patterns unconsciously. It's a self-teaching system. Just like a pilot learns to correct altitude and direction by reading instruments, you learn to navigate reality through the indicators it provides. Emotions, results, synchronicities. If something doesn't feel right, that's data. If something clicks effortlessly, that's data too. Nothing is meaningless once you start listening consciously. When you build a relationship with feedback, you move from control to cooperation. You're no longer trying to dominate reality, you're dancing with it. That's what the ancients called mastery.
That dance is where creation becomes elegant. You start realizing that contrast, what most call failure, is simply the rhythm guiding you towards balance. You can't refine your craft without feedback, just as a musician can't tune an instrument without sound. The process might feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is often clarity in disguise. It's reality showing you the edge of an outdated assumption. And once that assumption is seen, it dissolves and energy flows freely again. Every so called failure is actually proof that you're interacting with the field. It means you're engaged, creating, experimenting. The only true failure would be withdrawal, choosing not to play at all. And when you approach creation as play, feedback really does become fascinating. You begin noticing how quickly reality mirrors subtle internal shifts. A single change in perspective can alter outcomes that once seemed fixed. That's why many mystics describe creation as a conversation. You speak through vibration, the universe answers through circumstance. If the answer doesn't match your desire, you simply refine your language, the frequency of thought and feeling, until understanding emerges. Nothing is ever lost in that process. Even when results seem opposite to what you intended, they reveal valuable coordinates. Each experience calibrates the map between imagination and manifestation.
And that calibration is the essence of evolution. Each outcome, whether it delights or disappoints, builds precision into your awareness. You start perceiving where your assumptions create harmony and where they introduce distortion. Imagine learning to paint. At first, your strokes are uneven, but with every canvas, You sense proportion and color more intuitively. Failure becomes invisible because you're too focused on refinement. Conscious creation works the same way. The more you practice awareness, the less you fear imperfection. What's truly remarkable is how fast reality responds once you stop labeling experiences as mistakes. The feedback loop tightens. You think differently, you feel differently, and external patterns adjust almost immediately. That's not magic, that's responsiveness. Reality was never withholding anything, it was waiting for coherence. Most people exhaust themselves chasing results while ignoring feedback. But the creators who evolve quickly are those who pause after every outcome and ask, what was reality showing me about my current state? That question alone transforms you from a reactor to a researcher of consciousness. And the more you research, the more you realize that feedback is the shortest route to mastery.
At a certain point, fellow creators, you stop chasing perfection and you start valuing precision. You realize that feedback is not a correction system, it's the language of consciousness itself. Every outcome is communication. And when you understand that, your entire emotional relationship with failure changes. You no longer tense when plans unravel or results deviate. You become curious instead. You start asking, what aspect of me is this experience reflecting? That single question dissolves resistance. Reality isn't random, it's instructive. Each setback highlights where the signal got fuzzy. Each obstacle points towards what's ready to evolve. What once looked like chaos begins to feel like choreography, a perfectly timed pattern moving you towards clarity. And that shift in perception brings peace. You begin trusting the rhythm of life instead of fighting it. You start to see that every detour, delay, or disruption was fine tuning your readiness to receive. Eventually, you develop an intuitive trust in feedback itself. You don't need constant reassurance from outcomes anymore because you've learned to read the subtle language underneath them. The universe becomes a dialogue partner, not a judge. And at that level, failure disappears from your vocabulary. There are only responses, all of them useful.
And that's the revelation that changes everything. The universe has always been fluent in feedback. It doesn't punish, reward, or test. It reflects. Once you interpret that reflection correctly, you realize you've been participating in a perfect learning system all along. This is the hidden algorithm. Intention creates expression, expression generates reflection, and reflection refines intention. It's an eternal feedback loop that evolves consciousness through experience. When you align with that rhythm, life feels cooperative. You no longer see challenges as interruptions, you see them as calibration points. You stop asking, why isn't this working? And start asking, what's this showing me about how to work with reality more clearly? That mindset turns every outcome into momentum. Even apparent losses become expansions because they reveal deeper layers of truth. So here's the practice. After every experience, success or struggle, pause and decode it. Ask what belief, state, or focus produced that reflection. Then refine it. Do that consistently, and you'll witness reality reshaping itself in response to your clarity. Eventually, you stop chasing manifestation entirely. You begin living as the cause, not the effect. You become less interested in control and more fascinated by coherence. And in that coherence, creation flows without resistance. You become fluent in the language of feedback. And that fluency is what transforms ordinary creators into conscious ones.
If this conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to stay connected. Like this video if it resonated, share it with those walking a similar path, and subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive into conscious creation. When you tap the notification bell, you'll be the first to know when new insights drop. Reminders that keep your awareness tuned to the frequency of possibility. Your engagement isn't just support, it's part of the energy exchange that keeps this community expanding and evolving together. So until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.
I'm a quiet rebel, I don't need a shower, changing the world from the inside out. No fists in the